Well, that'll wake you up, guys. I am so proud to be introducing to you today's launching author of Beyond Brave, the wonderful Sally Anderson. I have had the joy and pleasure of working with this phenomenal human over the past year, let me say, on bringing this book out into the world. And can I just share, this book is a big part of the reason why we publish books, because this is a book that if you have the courage to embark on this journey that this author is bringing you on, it is going to transform your life, transform your grief. But I want you to hear all of this amazing stuff from the woman herself, the wonderful Sally Anderson. Come and join me, Sally. Welcome.
Privileged to be here today, my friend.
Oh, it's so good to have you. We're here, Sally. We're launching this beauty out into the world.
2.5 years, girlfriend, yeah. Been a journey.
You have been on a phenomenal journey. And one of the things I always see with books is that the author goes on the journey that's in the book. And this is a powerful book. So you've been on a powerful journey. So can you, first of all, just share with everyone kind of who you are, what you do, and where you are, and then we can get into talking more about the book.
Cool. So I'm based in the beautiful country of Aotearoa, New Zealand. A lot of people are very envious about living in this country, and I can understand why. Although I am based in New Zealand, I operate 100% offshore and have done for over 25 years. So I've done 37 years in senior leadership, 25 years in private practice. And part of what we're going to explore today is my return to the public domain, because I've been off the public domain for the last 7.5 years for various reasons, which we may cover today. But it's exciting to get to this point because we are at a stage in the world with unprecedented level of grief, unprecedented level of trauma. And it is by no coincidence that the timing of this book is coming out now, considering the point of difference that I'd love to speak into today.
Well, you can speak into it all that you want. We are an open book here, and I'm going to be guided by you, but I will prompt some questions because we have journeyed together. And so there's things that I may observe that will help our readers get to know you better, because that's what I want today, is for people to get to know you, the motivation behind the work that you do, the courage that you show up with, and that you can help others find within themselves. I've never met anyone as courageous as you, Sally Anderson. So,
it's darling. Gee whiz, what a compliment.
I'm
seeing a mutual admiration party, I tell you.
I am saying that with 100% honesty. I truly, truly am. All right, Sally, let's talk about Beyond Brave, the art of living courageously. So this book has been on a journey. Do you want to talk to that first?
Sure. So I've experienced quite a cross-section of adversity in my life. The latter part was the death of my husband in 2021. It's coming up 5 years in August. And of all of the adversity that I've experienced in my life, that took me beyond the comprehension of anything that I can describe. And I wasn't planned, but I questioned my faith. And I went to every dimension of my psyche. And I've done 42 years of healing. People may be questioning, what the hell was wrong with you to do 42 years of healing?
I think the bigger question, if she's 42 years of healing, what age is she? Because she doesn't look it.
I'm 60 years of age, but I feel like I'm getting younger, not older, you know. Yes. And I enjoy getting older. So I didn't choose to write this book. This book called me. And because I'd written 2 books prior, I kind of had an appreciation for what it took to, put together a manuscript and so forth. So it's really been a 2.5-year journey. I worked with a phenomenal woman called the book whisperer, Bridget Cook Birch, in Utah. And she pretty much took me into a masterclass of professional writing, given that I'd never been, professionally taught to write. And in the last 2 chapters of the book, when she read the manuscript, because we pulled it apart time and time again and resurrected it, she really challenged me on including more of my story in the book, which I was avoiding when I was writing the manuscript, because I've experienced a lot of death threats in my life. a lot of gang-orientated attack on my character, and literal gang rape. And I had to face my own mortality. I had an epiphany when she challenged me, and kind of like, if somebody put a gun to my head, still to this day, I wouldn't even flinch. Like, I'm done. The degree to which I've gone beyond the human psyche, the degree to which I've lived beyond human terror, the degree to which I've witnessed evil on this planet. I've been to every psychotic dimension of my own psyche and have witnessed, many, many stories over my career of the most extreme nature. Because I specialize in what I call the default identity. Moment by moment, we're either in our power or we're in our disempowered state, and we as humans oscillate between the two. In the existing personal professional development, there's a lot of focus on managing the default, coordinating yourself around the default, mastering the default. In my education, I teach you to die to your default completely, so that new default becomes your empowered state, and you get to live and lead a life of what I call equanimity, the ability to be the observer of what is versus how it could have been, should have been, wanted it to be. Mm-hmm. So given the 42 years of healing, I was called to write from the lens of empowered grief. To me, disempowered grief is like a life sentence. Yeah. Empowered grief is an extraordinary, revolutionary experience, right? So I've just written down a few things that I think are pertinent to. I don't want to in any way, shape or form come across like I'm invalidating the existing grief literature that's out there. I'm in awe and honoring, what is out there, because grief is one of the most difficult things to navigate, I believe.
And we can talk about grief in the sense of losing somebody, but also losing life that you knew to be and it not have that anymore because something changed. And I think a lot of people can really resonate with that. But definitely the losing somebody is a really, it's because that that can't come back,
Yeah. Well, I explored all facets within Beyond Brave, whether it's a loss of a pet, whether it's, through bankruptcy, through, losing your retirement funds, to losing your business, to divorce, to like the whole plethora of what, grief invokes, because everybody experiences different things depending on the intensity of their experience. So these are some of the things I just want to mention. In the existing grief literature, and this is only my experience, because I meet so many people, and of the 50 odd people that I interviewed for the book, because I wanted to understand directly from people what they were dealing with. And the majority, I'd say 99% of every single person I interviewed, they didn't believe they could get beyond their grief. And that just saddens me. Mind you, I think I have put a precursor at the start of my book saying, if you want a namby-pamby book on grief, this ain't it. So I'd suggest you put the book down before you, But if you want to get beyond your grief in a way that you never have, then, read on,
And you have to face it to do that, don't you, Sally?
Yeah. So my observation in the existing grief market, it's a lot to do. How do you survive it? How do you get through it? It's more about recovery and kind of like returning to some semblance of normal. Yeah. Whereas to me, this is a body of work that is looking at grief more as a passage of transformation versus recovery. Yeah. So grief is not a wound to manage, because a lot of people think that when they're grieving, they're broken. I don't believe you're broken. You're whole and complete within your soul. Yeah. So to me, it's a transformational passage to be honored. The most potent catalyst for human empowerment that is available to us today, the most potent. I mentioned the two sides to grief. So this book is entirely focused on the empowered aspect of grief. And for most people, when they think about grief, it's not frigging empowering. So it's a really different lens to look at. No mainstream grief literature approaches grief as a source of power, transformation, and leadership capability in a way that Beyond Brave does. And the things that make it really unique is that it's based on the 3 pillars of true transcendence: embracing confrontation, embracing resistance, and embracing discomfort. Like, I really want to go to everything I'm confronted by, resistant of, and uncomfortable with. Yeah. But I mentioned in a previous podcast, because I'm just new back on the scene, that we are living in uncertain times. There's not a human being on the planet that doesn't want certainty, doesn't want stability, and doesn't want safety. But when you're in the height of your grief, there's no certainty. When you're in the height of your trauma, there's no certainty. There's a lot of things that are uncertain in the world, the evil that's occurring on the planet. The youth of today looking at the future generation and the future of the world, a lot of uncertainty. The whole leadership landscape has changed. The leader who's used to being in control is unclear on how to navigate the level of uncertainty given the market, all the media invoking fear. So, I feel for where people are at, and I'm frustrated that there is not more solution-orientated education provided to the world. One of the things that I was going to leave you with today, because I'm a stand and an advocate for death literacy, healing literacy, and grief literacy in the schooling system. There's not a human being on the planet that's not going to experience grief and or death at some point in their life, and yet we do very little to educate people from a young age on how to navigate that terrain. And to me, that's just unbelievable.
Well, it's all part of the human experience. You cannot avoid it, And even for a child to lose a pet or something, like that's huge for their hearts,
Massive.
And they've so much to learn in that, isn't it? There's so much to learn, and that's the transformational part, isn't it? Howard.
In the context of acknowledgement, I really want to acknowledge yourself, who has gone beyond to support me in this, getting this message to market. In the education that I provide, I'm a stand for stopping people hurting permanently and believing that that's possible. Because when you're operating at what I call the 1 to 3 dimensional realm, all of human suffering is a function of what we make things mean. And people are walking meaning-based machines. Versus when you're operating in the 4th, 5th, and beyond dimension, which is when you evolve more in your consciousness, which I touch on in the book, there's no reason why you can't get beyond any level of suffering. And what really frustrates me is when I meet people who have been decades unable to get over their trauma and get over their grief. I've got every reason to not be here. I've got every reason to be but a statistic in the system, completely dependent on the system. I've got every reason to be in a frigging psych ward, but I'm not. And I believe I'm alive.
Sally,
you go.
Because there's some people who may not understand what's she talking about, 5th dimensions and 4th dimensions. Like a lot of people watching here now will be experiencing a 3D reality. And whenever grief hits in a 3D reality, it knocks you right off your perch. It just consumes your whole, you can't think of anything else. The sadness just engulfs your heart, like you actually feel the pain of it. And we're talking about death, but also of things changing that are beyond control and life and even the energy that's in the world today. And so whenever we're talking about going to, as you said, you had every reason to leave, and I suppose you did, because you went to higher dimensions and got to understand everything at such a higher level, and everybody has the capability and ability to do that, but everyone doesn't understand how it works. So I think it's important for us, and you do this in the book, you guide people there. That is why you're such an amazing guide for people to get there. We have someone who's just shared Michelle Howard said Sally Anderson is phenomenal. Yahoo, what a fabulous moment. Love you, Michelle. Love you, Michelle. But yes, can we speak to that just for the people watching who don't understand?
So where would I like to start with that? We were born intuitive, we were born connected, and we were born fearless. That was our birthright. And then we forgot. And, for those that have studied any form of ontology, the study of what it is to be human, most of the formation of what I call the default identity starts between the age of 3 to 5, 5 to 12, 12 to 21. So most people forget their connection, because, when you see a baby, the baby is in the beingness state. It is part of the whole. There is no separateness. And then obviously from the age of 3 to 5, it learns, don't touch that, don't do that, and it, constrains, how you show up as a human being. So you can either look at the world that you are a human being having a human experience or a human being having a spiritual experience. I'm
Yes.
not here banging the tambourine for faith. However, I believe that a life where you are connected to something that you believe, whether that's higher power, universal force, collective consciousness, God. I've coached everybody from every religious sect, spiritual sect, atheist sect. I've even converted a few atheists in my time, because it's a bit like electricity. If you don't plug in and get the electricity, bit tricky, leading your life, right? So I talk about co-creative leadership or quantumous leadership. Co-creative leadership is the ability to be able to operate in a co-creative state. So most people in that 1 to 3 dimensional realm that I was talking about is when they're disconnected from whatever semblance of faith. And basically living in the mind, which is a very dangerous territory, if you haven't noticed,
Yes.
versus being able to trust the unknown. So I believe spirituality is about trusting the unknown as much as the known. What could you accomplish if you trusted the unknown as much as the known? What would happen if you silenced your inner critic and you never heard that? That, to me, mastery over the inner critic needs to be in the schooling system. Don't even get me on that subject. So part of what I do is evolve people to a new level of consciousness.
Yes.
So leaders operating in that humanistic realm is very limited. Leaders operating in that co-creative realm, limitless. Why do I
Yes.
do that? So of the adverse experiences that I'm not going to go into detail with, but I'll give you a bit of a highlight. So at the age of 15, I was abducted and gang raped by a notorious gang here in New Zealand called the Mongrel Mob. It was one of the worst reported gang rapes in the history of New Zealand in the early 80s. Gang raped by more than 100 gang members and left for dead, pretty much. In the early 80s, no support for the victim. So how I was treated by the police and the medical fraternity was horrendous. So I've been to every psychotic dimension of my own identity, body dysmorphia to the extreme, every addiction to the extreme, fear and anxiety, like breath, every dysfunctional psychotic dimension you can imagine. I didn't need to go and do a psych degree because I've lived it directly. And I did that with no support. That's what's extraordinary about the story. So that was my first real defining moment. And then, 20, 30 years of being in courses, which is where the 42 years of healing has come in. So there's not many shoes I sit in front of where I don't have an integral understanding of dysfunction. I experienced a character assassination in 2018. It was very high profile. It went global, CNN, Fox News, BBC World, absolutely globally annihilated, death threats. I'm a light worker. I attract the dark. The more that you bring light and good into the world, the more that you're targeted. I'm aware of that. And obviously I coach leaders in that. But it was extreme. And it's been 7.5 years of still, spiritual warfare, plagiarization of education, massive, trolling online. So it is beyond brave to come back out to the public domain. And to be honest with you, I'm completely confronted, completely resistant, and completely uncomfortable doing what I'm doing. But I know that that's where the certainty lies. So to get from that level of uncertainty, the only reason, in my opinion, that people don't get beyond their grief and or their trauma is because they're unwilling to go to everything they're confronted by, resistant of, and uncomfortable with, to see what's on the other side, which is in the unknown domain, which is where I live. So I created Scandal Coach to be able to partner people who have been character assassinated, publicly shamed and or cancelled, having gone through the experience myself and been forged through the frickin' fire, because the key voices in the world are being silenced. Yes. And to me, academia has acknowledged that cancel culture exists, but I'm one of the first that's truly pioneering who is there for the leader in the middle of the storm when nobody wants to know you, your character's been absolutely annihilated. And anybody by association goes west because they don't want to be annihilated. So you're like a leper. And who's there for the leader? How do you, just on the book side of things, which comes into this as well, how do you recalibrate when you are in the height of your dynamic of everything going on where there's absolutely no certainty? How the hell do you recalibrate? So I've dedicated the first 8 chapters of Beyond Brave to recalibration. Then the next 8 chapters on how do you rebuild once you've kind of like found your center again. How do you rebuild? And then the last 8 chapters are focused on how do you reinvent. Yes. The book healed me. Me writing the book actually healed my own journey outside of the 42 years of healing. And so I live this education. Everything that's in the book is pretty much my life's work.
You have lived it. And one of the things that the journey, we like, you were not going to be out doing loads of interviews, doing loads of podcasts, doing this interview. Even that wasn't on the plan whenever we started this book. The book itself, you weren't going to be on the cover. All of the things, and yet you showed up at every stage. It was just as if you were just, right, this is so uncomfortable, but I'm guided, I have to say yes to this. And you just showed up with courage. And for you to walk the talk and walk the path that guides others, Sally Anderson, it's huge, especially in the era where cancel culture is, it's like, it's
Right.
just the norm, and it's just rife, and it's just so wrong that someone can go and put so many
Yep.
years into building something, and in one instant somebody just comes and topples it just by making an accusation or something. It's so wrong, but it also implodes their life. Everything around them and in their life implodes. So what do you do at that? I tell you what you do with that. You call Sally Anderson, who will help you gather yourself back together and get back on track and back to the rebuilding. Because as much as you think that everything will never be the same again, no, it won't, but it can be better whenever you come and do the work and move forward into it. Speak to that for me, Sally.
It's indescribable what a human being goes through, specifically around a character assassination, public shaming. I mean, it all lives on the internet for life. If you Google my name, it's not pretty. So I'm not just saying this for today's interview, but when we were talking about putting my face on the cover, I cannot articulate how the fear that I had to overcome to agree to that. Me including aspects of my life within the book. I've had my father die, my sister die, my brother die, my husband die, multiple friends' death. I thought I knew death, but really through the death of my husband, I understand adversity, I understand dysfunction, and it's weird to specialize specifically in the area of satanic, demonic, evil. And I know that I'm alive today specifically to specialize in that area, because people go to extreme, indescribable dimensions of their psyche when their character is challenged. And what's sad, and it's like a whole new field of work, because it's not taught in universities. It's not the number one strategy in amongst the other strategies in leadership development in the world. I believe every single leadership development program in the world, and it needs to be taught in universities, is how do you navigate cancel culture, the public shaming, the character assassination, because it is rife. The stories that I have heard are so extreme. Basically people are humiliated to death and they never recover. And a lot of them, because of what they feel that they have to face to go back out there. But because I face my mortality, if I get topped doing what I'm about to do, because I'm coming, I tell you, I've got a big philanthropic vision that I share in the book.
You've got a lot of support of people who have come in, like these people who've come in around you, who
like you.
Well, I'm here for the ride, absolutely. But who's who have been called in, and very powerful people who have just now gravitated in, and you're welcoming more to help with this mission, because you have a big vision, and it's in the book, and you are giving all of yourself to it, which I absolutely want to commend you for, because this, like, it's so what Sally's going to do with her philanthropy work is going to change the trajectory of the evil in the world, really, because you can't hide anymore. And I think the whole shift of consciousness that's happening, people are becoming more aware of what's actually happening in the world. You can't hide from it anymore. Don't pull the blanket over your heads. You start to be part of the solution and be part of the conversation, so that it can't happen. It can't happen.
So I'm developing a 90-minute one-woman show and intend to tour with that, and pretty much calling humanity to account for the extreme cruelty that is occurring on the planet. So if you look at society, for example, it's too confronting, resistant, and uncomfortable to even acknowledge that half of that evil is actually happening in the world. I was relaying something to somebody the other day about this multi-billionaire who's building a 1,000-room hotel on an island. Each room will house an 8 to 12-year-old boy in each room to cater for the billionaire sector. That's being built now. I could rattle off 20 other stories like that. It is thriving in the silence. So part of my philanthropic vision is to champion going there. And because I face my mortality, it's kind of like I got nothing left, so I can face any form of evil. And it's part of, when other practitioners will back out, I'll go in because I've met the devil on many occasions and I've died to myself on many occasions. It's kind of like, okay, being that kind of like that fearless practitioner. So, the pedophilia, the
And
child trafficking.
people are going to watch this now and go, surely not. That can't be happening in the world today. Like, how can that be happening? But it's so unbelievable that it is happening, but it's happening, and and you can't ignore it because it is happening. It's like they're
the latest stats, that French woman who was drugged and raped by her husband and all of the men that he brought in. The latest release is that 62 million viewers are viewing husbands who are training other husbands on how to drug their wives and how to elicit, men to come and, film it all and all the rest of it. 62 million views. There is a lot of evil in the world. Come on.
It's like, what?
So Sally Anderson's coming. Pedophilia, child trafficking, farming of child trafficked children's organs, baby bashing, baby killing, that whole ilk. The whole deep, dark web of, ordering babies online and clicking on teddy bears to denote the age and ethnicity of the children, the heinousness of, enrolling poor people in poor countries to, put monkeys in blenders and film that shit and then, farm that on the internet. It's kind of like, what the hell is going on? But it's rife, and it's, and then there's the sentient beings. It's about giving a voice to the voiceless and safeguarding the innocent. The sentient beings, the bear bile farming, the pig farrowing pens, the dog and cat meat trade, the circus animals, the poaching. Come on, people, if I can spend the rest of my life
there's so much
that, then I'm good.
Yeah. There's so much darkness, Sally, and it's so hard for us to go there because it hurts our heart so much to think that that is in our, but the one thing that we need to let everyone know is light is far more powerful than darkness. Darkness only
love is all there is.
Yep. Love is it. And whenever you shine that on darkness erodes, it goes away. Because if you go into a dark room, put on a light, darkness is gone. So it needs people who are, I suppose, light workers, should we call that, to go out and do the work and create the conversation. Now, I'm going to finish up because, of course, I knew we'd go over time, but I want to invite everyone to read the book, absolutely. In the book, there is a very graphic recall of what happened to you whenever you experienced the gang rape. And we wanted to bring that in because we wanted people to understand, and thank you for having the courage to share it. Like it I know that took a lot as well in the process, and that was further down the process whenever we added that to the book. So it is important that people understand that's at the beginning of the book, and it may be confronting, but it's there intentionally to understand the depth of what you are doing in this world through your experience and how you got through that, Sally. And I'm going to speak just briefly on that young girl who has actually chosen to leave the world through euthanasia because she endured a gang rape and she cannot deal with the thoughts running around in her head, and so she chose to leave the earth. So you experienced, and I thought of you whenever I heard about that one, and you experienced like such a harrowing experience, like I can't even comprehend, and yet you found your way to help others through that. So I just want to acknowledge, but also speak to that a little before we close off.
if you can appreciate, in 37 years in leadership, 25 years in private practice, I've heard some stories,
Mm.
and I believe everybody is harboring something. So my thing is that what I experienced was never acknowledged by society. Go back to school, act like it didn't happen. So there's part of me that I believe part of my calling is to give a voice to the voiceless, safeguard the innocent, off the back of my own experience as somebody who's experienced a heinous crime. What excites me about being called, because I didn't choose to come back by any shape of the imagination, I'm being called, so I'm honoring my calling, is that I want to leave people with the belief that it is possible to completely and utterly transform from your pain. Yeah. A lot of people have tried a lot of things and they still haven't got beyond it. I believe the education that I provide off the back of my own experience and those that I've had the privilege to work with, there is a solution. And likewise with, I'm working with some people at the moment, really looking at what is the next iteration of leadership in the world. How do we deal with the extreme corruption, because that has to be dealt with before you can make any change, and how do we deal with the cancel culture? So that formation moving forward, it's kind of like there is a solution to the mental health epidemic on the planet. There is a solution, so I want to basically hit up these think tanks and pull in the right resources to be able to stop tolerating what we're tolerating with the pharmaceutical and the big brother and the stagnation that we have within the education system because it wants to keep people disassociated. It's time for that major change. And I actually I searched on Claude the other day, all of the words like betrayal and demonization and criticism, and there are about 500. I could tick all of them. So I kind of thought, oh well, I've already experienced it all. Let's go. You got to have a sense of humor.
Exactly, isn't it? And that type of energy heals things. Sally Anderson, thank you so much. I know we could just go on and on and on, but we'll stop there. We'll invite people to go and get the book wherever they find their books, and come and join us tomorrow on our #1 campaign. Grab your Kindle copy then.
Great.
We would love to get some omnipresence around this book. So, and by sharing it, you're being part of the solution. So we absolutely invite you to do that. And thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching. And Sally, do you have anything you want to say before we leave?
Because I care, if there's anybody in your life and or your network that is experiencing grief and or trauma, and or have never got beyond their grief or trauma, regardless of what it is that they've tried over the years, over the decades, it's not about me selling a book. To me, there's a sense of urgency to reach the people, because the more healed the planet is, the better, we're going to be as a human race. So to me, there is a sense of urgency to be able to spread the education, such that we can heal the world.
Yes, amazing, beautiful, and thank you for showing up, for guiding us all, and for being that amazing person in the world who has brought this amazing book out into the world. Go and get your copy, guys. Share it with those who need it. We are here to support that. Come and tell us what you think, or if you need to share anything, we would love that. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.